So I'm curious about this, honestly. For anybody else practicing using Kubernetes locally, I will say that to me, it hasn't lived up to reality yet, and we don't do it anywhere because most of the effort for us in deploying a new service to Kubernetes is getting like the service account roles right, or getting it to integrate with RDS or all these other things, and all that stuff doesn't help me having the local development environment. And since we use our Cloud Posse mono chart, it's pretty much just typing out a bunch of images that we pull remotely, so we don't even have to do much chart development. Anybody successfully using Kubernetes for local development and improving your development workflows?
I've been using microcates a lot.
Micro
Uh,
crate?
Microcates, it's by
Oh,
Canonical.
microcates. I gotcha. Yeah. Uh,
Uh, Definitely bugs and lots of corners and edges, but it works pretty well for what we're using it for.
and how are you guys using it for local development? What's the rest of your tool chain consist of? Are you using Helm file, or using Customize, or what? How are you deploying on Kubernetes?
We use home file. We're in Azure, so we're using AKS. We use ACR, but especially for getting other devs like into Kubernetes and showing the ropes, it's handy. And doing a
Okay.
lot of experimenting. It helps.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And this is a recurring theme. It's like, what are you optimizing for? So for developers, you're optimizing for the local development experience for like possibly service-oriented architectures, or aka microservices. Then you have like your production environments, which are optimizing for performance and not debuggability and traceability and security and consistency and hardening. And then you have maybe your preview environments where you're optimizing for running it in Kubernetes, but not necessarily with your production configuration, because that would be time consuming to deploy, expensive to operate, and complicated. So we optimize for basically three kinds of scenarios. For local development, look, Docker Compose has been very effective for teams. They understand how it works. Anything that's written in Docker Compose will more or less work in Kubernetes, unless you're depending on just tons and tons of operators, for example, to power your stuff. But if you're depending on a lot of those operators, your mileage may vary anyways when you're trying to run that inside of your like little local cluster. Like, if you're depending on, say, cert manager or external DNS or Istio, all that stuff is going to be complicated to set up locally. So we try and keep it as simple as possible. If your apps run containerized under Docker Compose, it's very easily to translate that into a Helm file release that we deploy.